Hey everyone, back again. Welcome back to another video review. This time, everyone, we are going to be taking a look at, once again, another epic moment in history. That is, of course, none other than the Stanley Cup Finals. Once again, and this time it's between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Dallas Stars. So, how do we get to this point? And you may be wondering, why are we reviewing the Stanley Cup Finals in September when it should be in the summertime, like June and such? Well, of course, with what's this particular going on with the COVID-19, yeah. So, basically, before I get into the finals and such, of course, we all know what happened with the coronavirus, what it did, and or what it's doing now and such. And basically, a lot of things shut down. The NHL too. But they didn't give up. They had a return to play path. And lo and behold, two hub cities, Toronto and Edmonton, were the hub cities throughout this magnificent awesomeness. Even more interesting is that the format was different. 24 teams made instead of 16. So that's made it interesting. And there you go. So, how do we get to this point? So, we'll start with the Dallas Stars. They went through the Calgary Flames, Colorado Avalanche, and the Vegas Golden Knights to get to finals. Tampa Bay, though, after being swept by the Blue Jackets last year and, well, being defeated by the Blackhawks, the Chicago Blackhawks, in 2015, which I reviewed, they avenged themselves. They took down the Columbus Blue Jackets, Boston Bruins, the New York Islanders, and the aforementioned Dallas Stars to win Lord Stanley. They're second since they first won it back in 2004. As for Dallas, though, this was their first appearance since 2000, when they lost in 6 games, ironically, to the New Jersey Devils and Martin Brodeur. Or vice versa. And of course, the heroics of Jason Arnott. So, all in all, what can I say? This was quite a physical, and much like last year's final between St. Louis and Boston, that was ugh. But anyways, wow, what can I say? It was just truly, truly spectacular. So, with that out of the way, let's review the games. So, first period. In the first period, of course, 5 minutes into the game, Joel Hanley gets his first career playoff goal, assisted by Rope Hintz. Dallas leads 1-0. 12 minutes, but at the 12-minute mark of the period, Yanni Gourde gets his 6th of the playoffs from Blake Coleman and Barclay Goodrow to tie the game. But the second period is where Dallas turns it on. Jamie Alexiak gets his 5th of the playoffs from Alexander Radulov and Miro Heiskanen to give Dallas their 2-1 lead. But then near the end of the second, Joel Kiviranta gets his 5th of the playoffs from Trevor Lindell and Oscar Klingberg. John Klingberg, sorry. Whoops. Why did I say Oscar Klingberg? Makes sense. Anyways, so that was the second period. But the third period comes, and Jason Dickinson gets his first career playoff goal in an empty net from Blake Como and Matthias Janmark, sealing the 4-1 Dallas win. So game 2, in the first period, Braden Point gets his 10th of the playoffs on the power play from Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman, giving Tampa the 1-0 lead. However, a little later on the power play again, Andre Palat gets his 9th of the playoffs from Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman, giving them a 2-0 lead. But before the end of the first period, of course, Kevin Shattenkirk gets his 2nd of the playoffs from Blake Coleman and Anthony Cirelli, giving Tampa the 3-0 lead. In the second, however, Joe Pavelski gets his 10th of the playoffs on the power play from John Klingberg and Alexander Radulov, cutting the lead to 2 goals. But then 5 minutes into the third period, Mattias Janmark gets his first of the playoffs from John Klingberg and Alexander Radulov, making it 3-2 Tampa. It wasn't actually the final score. Dallas tried many attempts to tie it, but to no avail. Game 3. In the first period, Nikita Kucherov gets his 7th of the playoffs unassisted 5 minutes into the first period after being banged about, giving Tampa the 1-0 lead. However, a miracle happened as in the first period, of course, Steven Stamkos returns from a very serious injury, of course, getting his first of the playoffs and his first career goal in the Stanley Cup Finals. Giving Tampa to the lead. The goal was assisted by Victor Hedman and Jan Rutta. However, Jason Dickinson gets his 2nd of the playoffs shorthanded from Roope Hintz, cutting the lead in half before the first period ended. But in the second period, of course, Victor Hedman gets his 10th of the playoffs from Anthony Cirelli and Andre Palat, giving Tampa a 3-1 lead on the power play. Then Braden Point, a little later on, gets his 11th of the playoffs from Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman again, giving Tampa a nice 4-1 lead. But before the end of the second, Andre Palat gets his 10th of the playoffs from Braden Point and Kevin Shattenkirk, giving Tampa a 5-1 lead. However, not even 5 minutes into the third period, Miro Hezekainen gets his 6th of the playoffs from Joe Pavelski and Andrew Cogliano, kind of lead at 3 goals, but Tampa would prevail 5-2 in that game. First period, John Klingberg gets his 4th of the playoffs from Trevor Lindell, giving Dallas the 1-0 lead. Before the end of the first period, of course, Joe Pavelski gets his 11th of the playoffs from Jamie Benn and Alexander Radulov, giving Tampa the 2-0 lead. However, before the end of the first, Braden Point gets his 12th of the playoffs from Andre Palat and Kevin Shattenkirk, so cutting the lead to 2-1. Not even a minute into the second period, of course, Braden Point gets his 13th of the playoffs on the power play from Alexander Killorn and Nikita Kucherov, tying the game at 2. However, at the 8-minute mark, Corey Perry gets his 3rd of the playoffs from Tyler Seguin and Mattias Janmark, giving Dallas the lead again. But then on the power play, Yanni Gourde gets his 7th of the playoffs from Nikita Kucherov and Mikhail Sergachev, tying the game at 3. Third period, however, Alex Killorn gets his 5th of the playoffs from Mikhail Sergachev and Anthony Cirelli, giving Tampa Bay the 4-3 lead. However, before the end of the third period, of course, Joe Pavelski gets his 12th of the playoffs from Tyler Seguin and Miro Heiskanen, tying the game at 4, sending the game to overtime. In overtime, however, after Dallas takes a penalty, Kevin Shattenkirk would score on the power play, winning the game in overtime, assisted by Victor Hedman and Patrick Maroon, giving Tampa Bay the 5-4 win, and of course giving Tampa Bay a 3-1 lead in the series. So in the first period, Corey Perry gets his 4th of the playoffs, assisted by Tyler Seguin and Jimmy Oleksiak, giving Dallas a 1-0 lead. But in the second period, however, Andre Palat gets his 11th of the playoffs from Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point, tying the game at 1. Then, not even 3 minutes into the third period, Mikhail Sergachev gets his 3rd of the playoffs, assisted by Braden Point, giving Tampa the 2-1 lead. But then Joe Pavelski would score again on his 13th of the playoffs for Miro Heiskanen and Tyler Seguin, giving Dallas the tie, if you will, tying the game at 2, sending the game to overtime again. Although there was very high-paced action in the first overtime from Tampa, Dallas didn't do much. But in the second overtime, 10 minutes into the second overtime, Corey Perry would prevail. He would score his 5th of the playoffs, assisted by John Klingberg and Tyler Seguin, winning the game in double overtime and cutting the series lead 3-2. Tampa still, though, has one more chance to clinch the Stanley Cup. In the first period, Braden Point gets his 14th of the playoffs from Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman on the power play, giving Tampa Bay the important 1-0 lead. Then in the second period, Blake Coleman gets his 5th of the playoffs from Cedric Paquette and Patrick Maroon, giving Tampa the 2-0 lead, and eventually the win. And as Tampa Bay would finally clinch the second cup in their franchise history, as Andrei Vasilevsky would turn all 22 shots that he faced, giving him his first career playoff shutout in the process. So, wow, what can I say? Tampa Bay. I remember, if you remember back in 2014, I remember going and watching them play. Like, I remember seeing, some of the players, like Tyler Johnson and Andre Palat and Nikita Kucherov, even Steven Stamkos was there. I remember watching that. It was like, wow, this is going to be a dang good team. And that was the year that the Montreal Canadiens beat them out in the first round. Minus their goalie Ben Bishop, but who ironically was on the Dallas end of this final. He wasn't even dressed for the final. We got to give credit to Anton Hudobin, who was in net for Dallas. Even though he was their backup at the start, he did the job very well, despite everything. And Rick Bowness, 5 decades of coaching, and so close again, yet so far. And one day his name will be etched on Lord Stanley. It will. In Dallas, I understand. A lot of people have, said, "Oh no, why this and that?" Look, Dallas is going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Jamie Benn's a pretty good leader, and I think he'll do pretty good. As for Tampa Bay, though, they did wonders. Victor Hedman was a beast. He winning the Conn Smythe, of course, as MVP of the playoffs. And my goodness, it was just tremendous. And Steven Stamkos, even though he played that one game, despite the core injury he suffered in February, he did excellent. He really, truly did. And what can I say? It was an amazing journey for Tampa Bay, an epic, magical journey. I mean, what a coincidence. Dallas was in the finals 2000. Thomas Metro was at least 2012, 20th anniversary of Magic Railroad happens. Dallas goes into the finals this year, but no New Jersey. That's the only difference. I'm just laughing because, you know, coincidence and such. But anyways, the point is, John Cooper was a tremendous, just an excellent and outstanding by the bench. And the fact that if you like, and Jeff Halpern was just also an amazing addition to the coaching staff. It was so amazing that he finally got his name etched on Lord Stanley at long last. Like, it was just quite an awesome and fantastic journey for this team. And honestly, what more can I say? It was an epic Stanley Cup final. I'm going to be really interested to see what happens next year. Hopefully, we'll see if I'm pretty certain that a Canadian team will be in the final next year. It's just a prediction, not, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, so we'll see what happens. But anyways, that is my video review of the Stanley Cup Finals this year between the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Stanley Cup winners, and the Dallas Stars, the runner-ups, of course. I'll see you all very soon. I will be back as soon as possible the next video. And yes, so take everyone. See you soon. Good day. And I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.